Well, good afternoon. My name is Dendra Best. I'm the Wastewater Education Executive Director. You'll see my picture there sitting on the shores of Lake Superior with my husband and my beautiful Newfoundland dog. And I thought that was a very appropriate photo to put up there today, as we are heavily focused upon the Great Lakes Basin. That was our original place of beginning our organization. But now if you cast your eyes over onto the left side of the screen, you will see that the Great Lakes, in its position as part of the fifth of the world's freshwater resources. Quick couple of pieces of housekeeping here. Our speaker today is going to be Jennifer Cisneros from Bio-Microbics. You will see her there in the top right of your screen. And any of the windows that you see on the screen today, you can manipulate after the fact, because this event is being recorded. You may be viewing this on a handheld device, a tablet or a phone, and you just need that screen to be a little bit bigger. If you hover over the top right corner of any of these windows, you will see this symbol appear, and clicking on that will make that particular image full screen. To come back to this layout, hover in the same general area and you'll see that symbol, but it's pointed inwards. Quick disclaimer here. We are a public education nonprofit organization, so although you'll be hearing about some proprietary technologies and proprietary entities, you should not construe this as an endorsement or as paid advertising. Our purpose is public outreach, and basically because we are independent and impartial, our focus is on assisting individuals and communities to, as it says, discover the financial and environmental advantages of implementing sustainable integrated water infrastructure. Because as our logo says, water is water, not waste. If at any time we lose signal or any of this recording does not quite go to plan today, do be aware that we are able to edit after the fact, and you will receive that recording link. And do please feel free to share that. At this point, we're going to watch a quick video. As you see the Great Lakes Basin there, and you see us on the shores of Lake Superior. For 3 years, we were an active partner in a Great Lakes Commission project called Greater Lakes, and it produced a wonderful video called Fractured Waters. And we'd like to show that as an example of exactly what we're talking about today.
One of the challenges that we have in water management is the disconnect between what the general public perceive and what reality is.
The way in which we have built infrastructure in our urban areas has disrupted the natural flow of water, which have created these flood issues, have created the loss of water supply that we need, have created massive erosion issues that we've never really had to deal with. And that is affecting not only nature and habitat and wildlife and so on, but it's also having very negative consequences for people living in municipalities.
With these extreme events, we're seeing basement floodings, we're seeing water treatment plants having to shut down because of algae growth. Those are all things that we're starting to realize the way we're doing things today is not working.
And a lot of that old infrastructure is now starting to leak, is now starting to break down, and therefore we are in danger of huge financial issues.
Part of better management is trying to mimic nature and the natural water cycle, trying to get water into the ground to maintain groundwater, as well as treat it, filter it, and cool it before it goes to our rivers and streams. So one of my projects is looking at different innovative green infrastructure technologies like we see here in Lakeside Park that can help to mimic nature and to protect our Great Lakes and our rivers. permeable driveways. So that's interlocking bricks that allows for water to go into the ground, rain gardens to reduce water consumption, but also to treat rainwater before it goes into the ground.
We're in the Eliza Howell Park in the Brightmoor neighborhood of Detroit. We're along the River Rouge Basin. And if we can incorporate more natural systems, and much of this is being contemplated and implemented right now through the Detroit Water and Sewage Department in this area, we can actually be better stewards of this river and the Great Lakes overall. Incorporation of green infrastructure systems, both large and small, they're not inconsistent with a very focused urban agenda. In fact, they're quite complementary. But we also need to be thinking much more creatively and innovatively about how we adapt new, different systems that actually leverage the existing assets we have on the ground, the topography that we have, the hydrology that's present. These are things we can do, and they can have a long-term, really powerful impact on overall cost and revenue balance, which helps everyone involved, but also it brings neighborhoods together and creates a much more healthful environment for people.
We need to evolve just like other industries do in providing new products and evolving our science. Part of that means that we need to engage our community. We need to reconnect them with the water and with their environment. We need to show them how to recreate nature on their own properties and how business can do that economically and sustainably.
But until we start seeing water conservation, water efficiency, and green infrastructure as core components of solving our water needs in municipalities, we won't make the big change that we need.
And we've got to find a way to have a better coexistence with the Great Lakes. I think many folks are working to get there, both within the city of Detroit and across Michigan, and certainly within Ontario. But we do need to get there, and we need to get there fast to lay the groundwork for decades and decades of different types of investment over time. These things don't happen overnight. But our sense of urgency is really strong because we know we've got to set that new direction.
So, having watched that video, there on the screen is Jennifer. Hello, Jennifer. Let me start my webcam as well. Yes, hello everyone. And having experienced technical issues in the past, let me say how wonderful it is to actually see Jennifer there, and hopefully we will have equal technological success with the rest of our event. So again, a quick disclaimer, as we said, that we host and make these events publicly available for public education purposes. The whole purpose of today is that this is Earth Month, and every time that Earth Month comes around, we hear the same sort of buzzwords about green infrastructure and sustainability, and we thought it was worth this month to remember that it's been 47 years since the first Earth Day. April 22nd will be 47 years. And that actually, when we were talking this morning, Jennifer told me that Bio-Microbics actually was founded before the first Earth Day, I believe 1969, something like that.
In 1969, so it predates the Clean Water Act.
Yeah. So you have to cast your mind back to what this country was like in 1970. We had air and water quality that was a national disgrace. We were able to put a man on the moon, but we're also able to set fire to a major river. The If you've seen the pictures, then you know what I'm talking about. So the question is, in 47 years, how far have we actually come? As you may have heard, there is some consideration of rolling back some of those landmark pieces of legislation: Clean Water Act, Safe Drinking Water Act, Clean Air Act. And it's really tempting when you're putting a series like this together to look at all the really negatives, the things that are real challenges. And we decided instead to be a little bit more positive, a little bit more proactive. And each generation, each millennium faces its own particular brand of pollution, its own particular challenge. We create the technology, and then really we have to create the means to clean up what we've created. So when we put together the Earthy Matters series, we decided that we would look at committed professionals, committed technologies that exemplified innovation. And to put in perspective, bearing in mind the video we've just watched, we've been able to design sewer systems since the ancient Roman times. The city of Paris had a really vastly advanced system in the 17th and 18th century. The city of London put one in the mid-19th century. And mostly it was as a way to try and minimize contagion, pathogenic outbreaks such as cholera and typhoid. But the technology really didn't really solve some of those public health issues, really, because we chose the path of using water as a way to transport it somewhere else. It basically went downstream to somebody else's river and watershed, or out to sea, in which case, for example, in the city of Boston or the city of New York, it basically didn't go very far outside of the harbor, so not a very pleasant thought about this. So here we are in the 21st century. You know, we've known how to build these conveyance systems for a very long time, but you've probably seen again some of the news stories about the crushing weight of debt on small rural communities, many of whom are having to finance these new proposed systems over 30 or 40 years. And I don't know about you, but could you imagine passing on a 40-year debt to your children or your grandchildren? And many of these large, big engineered systems will have to be refinanced again to cover the repairs, because the expected life expectancy of some of these systems is 20, 25 years. So it's kind of like buying a car and having to refinance taking care of the rust in years to come. And what you'll hear about today is not something new. In fact, when we close out today, we're going to give you the option to stay and watch a video from 2002. We're talking here about systems and management and technology that is not new, is not innovative, but it is advanced. To set the stage for our presenter today, I'm going to show you another quick video, because unfortunately we seem to have this opinion, particularly here in the United States, that this is something we don't talk about. This is nasty stuff that we put in a box, put away, we don't talk about it. It goes somewhere else. Well, of course, it doesn't. And whenever you are taking that kind of resource and not looking at it as a resource, you're missing a tremendous financial opportunity. So we're gonna watch this quick video, and then we're gonna pass it back to Jennifer, and we'll go from there. Jennifer, would you mute your microphone for me, please? Or I can do that from you. Okay.
What do you think of when you see this? Believe it or not, for Alan DeSalt, it's renewable energy that comes to mind.
Manure manager is my nickname title. Not something that my parents may be proud of, but certainly it's something that the job engenders.
DeSalt's actual title is Program Director for Sustainable Conservation, a San Francisco-based nonprofit that spearheads efforts to shift business and agriculture toward greener practices. One of their projects is helping California dairy farmers convert cow manure into electricity. No joke, it's a proven technology called methane digesters.
We're all little methane digesters, and if people have eaten beans, they probably understand what I mean by that. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to capture the gas coming out of people. Cows, on the other hand, it's actually not that difficult. Once the manures come out of the cow, there's all these little bacteria in there that actually break it down and produce that gas. And all it takes is to get a bunch of those together in a pond, and you got methane.
Here at Joseph Gallo Farms, near Atwater in Merced County, General Manager Carl Morris shows me how to make power from poop.
So this is the remnants of the cow poo.
That's correct.
In my hands.
Yes.
It's actually very nice and fluffy.
Okay.
The whole process starts when wastewater from the company's cheese plant is used to flush manure from cow stalls. Then solids are separated from liquids.
Well, this is the separated manure solids from the separator here. It's actually a very high straw content. It's just what passed through and not digested and gets separated out.
The remaining manure water is pumped into a 7-acre covered lagoon, where natural bacteria from the cow's gut break it down in an oxygen-free or anaerobic environment.
Well, here we are on our digester. We're actually walking on top of 45 million gallons of manure water.
That is a new experience for me, I have to say.
This is covered by...
As bacteria consume organic material, a complex biochemical reaction occurs, and the carbon content of the waste is converted to methane. The dairy's equipment then traps the gas, cleans it, and burns it as fuel in 2 generators. The system provides as much as 80% of the electricity needed to run the company's cheese plant.
And how many cows do you have here at Joseph Farms?
Well, this dairy, our Cottonwood dairy that feeds this digester, is 5,000 cows about. We have a total of 16,000 cows on 5 dairies.
And how much manure do they produce every day?
A lot. The average cow produces about 90 to 100 pounds of manure, so you do the math.
Every single day?
Yes.
Does it go up and down then?
Not that much. It's usually billowed up like this. If it goes up too much, there's emergency vents there.
All this gas adds up to impressive savings for Joseph Gallo Farms. They've knocked off $1,500 a day from their electricity costs and saved 300,000 gallons of propane per year. The system cost about $2 million, $600,000 of which was funded by a grant from the California Energy Commission. Although the technology is promising, experts say it won't be widely installed at dairy farms until utilities like PG&E are required to buy back the electricity they generate. If the methane from California's 1.7 million dairy cows was captured and converted to biogas, it could supply upwards of 120,000 homes with electricity.
You know, when I see waste, I think of resource. We don't make a connection between our food and our products we consume and the waste we generate. People know, you know, they've heard got milk, but they don't think get manure. And that's something that I want people to get, is to get manure, because that is really an important issue in terms of both environmental impact and potential environmental benefit.
Manure, while not quite as sexy as other green energies like solar and wind, has an added ecological advantage. Not only does the use of biogas offset the use of fossil fuels, it also greatly reduces the air and water pollution that would normally result from dairy operations.
Because we have a lot of cows in California, actually 1 out of every 5 gallons of milk produced in the United States comes from California, so there's a lot of cows producing waste. They have an impact when that waste hits the ground.
And when it hits the ground, it does more than just stink. It contributes significantly to global warming. Cattle waste is responsible for about 20% of all the methane emission in the U.S. Like carbon dioxide, methane is a greenhouse gas. But methane is 21 times more damaging than CO2. So methane digesters actually turn pollution into an energy solution.
Methane digesters can actually provide quite a bit of energy. Most people don't realize it's not just dairy manure. There's all sorts of organic waste streams that are suitable.
Turns out that anaerobic digesters can take pretty much anything that's ever been alive, like food scraps and yard trimmings, and recycle it into usable energy. But until recently, the process has been expensive and inefficient.
Well, in the United States and in many other countries, wastewater and the solid waste are managed differently. And wastewater treatment has been very well developed. However, solid waste has been mainly disposed in landfill.
After 8 years of designing and prototyping in her lab at UC Davis, Dr. Ruihang Zhang has recently unveiled the Biogas Energy Project, a state-of-the-art system called an anaerobic phased solids digester.
What kind of material comes into the system?
Well, the system is designed to be able to take in a variety of waste materials, including food scraps, grass clippings, animal manure, rice straw, for example. And so it can process a variety of organic materials.
Here's how it works. Food waste is collected from restaurants and institutions, like here at the UC Davis cafeteria. It's then trucked across campus to the digester, where it's loaded into the hopper. Conveyor belts pump the stinky sludge into tanks, where special microorganisms chow down. As the microbes digest the waste, they produce gases like hydrogen and methane. Zhang's design, which was built by on-site power systems, captures and separates these gases, then turns them into several different kinds of fuel.
We make a methane gas which we can use to run a generator and make electricity. We can make compressed natural gas. We can make liquid natural gas. We've got hydrogen we can use for fuel cells. We can blend the hydrogen with either natural gas or diesel for a higher energy yielding fuel.
Zhang's digester has the capacity to transform 8 tons of waste a day into enough electricity to power 80 California homes. It was designed as a proof of concept to demonstrate the commercial viability of this technology.
One of the big advantages of this one, there's a lot of digester technologies, but they're more centralized plants. You have to bring all the feedstock in. We're scalable. We can build it to fit the size of the customer's needs. These are 10,000 gallon tanks. We're looking at some for the City of Industry that will be 250,000 gallon tanks. That allows us to go anywhere in the state and build it where the waste is, and that gives us an amazing advantage over the other technologies out there.
Wherever people eat, there's waste, lots of it. And NorCal Waste Systems in San Francisco is putting it to good use. For its composting operation in Vacaville, they collect 300 tons of food scraps every day from more than 2,200 restaurants in the Bay Area, including the 4-star Jardiniere in San Francisco.
Here we have our big green dumpster, so any of our renewable food scraps go into this dumpster here. And then we have our blue bins and our black bins, the black bins being actual garbage, and then the blue bins being recyclable glass and paper.
And since you started this program, about how much have you reduced your landfill waste?
I think we've probably reduced the landfill waste to 8 to 10% of the garbage that we're generating now.
Now that technology, like Dr. Zhang's Biogas Energy Project, has made solids digestion more palatable, it won't be long before these gourmet scraps are powering everything from dishwashers to school buses.
It's just such an exciting program. I think we could really change the way that this whole country deals with waste and waste management by having these kinds of programs implemented.
I think there is a lot of opportunity for us to commercialize this new technology for solving real waste disposal problems. I do strongly believe zero waste is a realistic goal we can achieve in our lifetimes.
So I hope that has whetted your appetite, so to speak, for what's coming up. If anything, that should have drawn your attention to a couple of things here. First of all, the idea that, just unmute that, the idea that backyard septics is the only thing that we're talking about here. easily a quarter to a third of the country relies upon individual treatment systems. And these are not just your grandpa's backyard septic system. These are large-scale, commercial-scale, on-site treatment systems. That video we saw is 10 years old. And that may have been a proof of concept, but now there are digesters all across the country. There is a very large municipal digester plant, not, I would say, 60 miles from where I'm talking from. And the idea that individual treatment for individual need is eminently financially scalable, and also makes really good sense if you are trying to preserve the character of your community, or you have a particular type of waste stream that you're dealing with, such as the winery, such as the cheese plant. And that's some of the things that we're going to hear from Jennifer today. So with that, Jennifer, take it away.
Well, we're talking about small community systems here, and when we talk about big options, we're actually talking about many options. Just a little disclaimer, Bio-Microbics, we're a manufacturer of these treatment systems. They're effective alternatives to conventional wastewater treatment plants. They're environmentally safe, cost-efficient, and certified. The history of the company, Bio-Microbics, has been around for more than 20 years, focusing on the on-site market. Our first system was a single home fast, and it was originally designed to go on marine vessels of all types, for towboats, workboats, to cruise ships and offshore platforms. So the technology we're talking about was literally born on the water. The offering solutions for Bio-Microbics, we focus on the micro scale, but recently we've gone to the macro scale. So we're talking about the larger systems where small communities can actually have decentralized technologies, but for the flow rates that they need for all the inhabitants of that community. There's a lot of keynote speakers and addresses that you can be able to download. One that was particular interest for me was the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Office of Wastewater Management. Sheila Fars is the deputy director at the time that she gave the keynote address, and the title was The Role of Decentralized Treatment Within the U.S. Wastewater Infrastructure. There's others out there that are talking about the same topic. So we're, again, not talking about your grandmother's septic systems, but actual vetted wastewater treatment systems that are solving a multitude of issues, whether it's in the U.S. or across the ponds, as they say. It's a global concern. Wastewater isn't useless water. This is a technical paper we wrote talking about decentralized technologies, how they're designed for the purpose intended, where the population in rural and urban areas where it's predicting that the population will more than double, they need to address the infrastructure now. And hopefully this will give an idea of what you could be able to do with better water management systems. Hopefully you'll ask some questions, but today I've got frequently asked questions. Where does all the community's wastewater go? Basically, it either gravity flows or pump stations transfers the wastewater into a centralized sewering plant, gets treated, partially treated or totally treated, and then out into the local waterway, just basically thrown away. So the wastewater never goes back to the original source of where that water came from. Eventually it just goes out into the oceans, and so again, it's not managed back to the original source, but becomes somebody else's source water, and then somebody else's source water, and somebody else's source water, all the way down to the in our case, the Gulf of Mexico, where our water ends up. What support or resources are available? Well, in organizations like Dendris, with the wastewater education, they do an enormous amount of outreach to develop the tools that end users, municipalities, all of the leaders civil leaders can be able to review and address their particular needs with the type of terrain and community that they have. The technology is available. Hopefully I can shed some light on this with this presentation. And then to define what is fit for purpose or designed for needs systems. And I think there's a survey at the end of the webinar that will ask you about this. So this is the hydrological cycle, where aside from the ice caps, this is a simplified view of the daily use of water. It is used from, I think I have a laser pointer here, used from the top of the peaks down to the valleys and out into local waterways and watersheds. It will get absorbed into the ground for recharging as it goes along its route to find these waterway systems. But this is the urban core right here that we're talking about, and how the city just throws it away to be, again, somebody else's source down the river. What we'd like to see is on-site systems keeping the water where it's at and recharging up here before it's thrown away where these inhabitants can't get to. But a very interesting and, again, simplified way to show how we're currently managing water and how we can manage it better. Centralized sewering systems, they're made to be able to leak. I mean, it's just infrastructure with pipes going miles and miles away. The urban water systems, they leak the equivalent of 13 million Olympic-sized pools every year. And this is a statistic that was shared on World Water Day this year, that the World Bank Group and the World Bank Water Group had tried to impart some of these statistics, and why there's a growing concern for the way centralized sewering systems are not addressing the need. Rural communities, this is basically a snapshot of how the small-scale support are divided up into scenarios, if you will. That scenario A, leadership by the small communities, they would like to blend the water and wastewater into a pragmatic long-term vision of development. Since it's a small community, it makes sense to be able to do that. Scenario B is to adopt the urban utilities. They like the idea of the centralized sewering utilities, but again, being motivated by water shortages or the high cost of replacing the path to infrastructure, it's a daunting task for adoption of these integrated approaches. And ultimately, it's to restore and preserve the natural water and keeping it on site. Scenario B is the refinement of using innovative approaches with maybe rainwater retention, infiltration, wastewater treatment, reuse on individual properties, and then be able to flow into cluster systems. And then a scenario D is to reform the planning and regulations for more flexible integrated water and wastewater infrastructure development. The concept here is that each of these areas need to have a stake in the planning and design of, and engage the public and key stakeholders to develop these innovative approaches, so that advocacy, refinement, adoption, and leadership can all combine and be able to do a better job at managing the water for rural communities. The situation that most small towns are characterized by is that they don't have the population or the incomes that the larger urban core would have. The true cost calculations comparing monetary and non-monetary cost stems from this, from the density to the income to possible other local sources or having to develop alternative sources if there is no source available. So all of that takes into account of what a small town has to consider when they're dealing with their water treatment and their wastewater treatment. The innovative policies that they have with regulatory management mechanisms can integrate more of the soft path rather than the hard path of infrastructure, and that starts to develop the conversations and solutions that water resource sectors can adopt and create sustainable community initiatives and therefore have more innovative utilities and water management structures. So again, all of the aspects need to be considered when selecting the appropriate technology for a small community. The criteria is basically here, and it's kind of small, but it talks about the reliability of the system. So you want to make sure that you have proven technology certified and know that it does work for the long term and not just a short term gain. Operational simplicity. A lot of small communities don't have trained on-site personnel to be able to 24/7 manage the water treatment facility as well as the wastewater treatment facility. Also, public health being a big proponent of using on-site treatment systems. You want to make sure that there's an efficiency of reducing the pathogens and bacteria out of your wastewater treatment system. Ultimately, capital cost ends up being the yay or nay for a project to go through. But not only capital cost, but the long-term operation and maintenance cost needs to be considered, because what could be cheap on the front end may not be cheap on the back end. So again, something to consider for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years out of what it would cost to operate and maintain the water treatment plants and the wastewater treatment plants. And if there's any additional treatment, environmental impacts, and if there's any other universal adaptable systems that can use natural resources, whether it's rainwater harvesting or being able to treat stormwater runoff or any of the other source of water that would be available. And then the safety risk for public health and any of the other components that would be implemented for treatment. Growing populations equals economic growth. So if you can solve the issue of water, you can improve the lives of the inhabitants. That's basically what this talks about. So again, not your grandma's septic system. These aren't just a tank in the ground. It's a treatment, an Intel chip, if you will, inside the treatment tank that makes an advanced wastewater treatment system. So whether it's a plastic tank, concrete tank, any locally sourced tank, these systems are performance-based, and they're tested by third-party entities and meets all the required regulatory models from current to future updates. So that's why advanced wastewater treatment systems should be considered. This is the centralized sewering concept. It's nice and neat, but it's very complicated. And after these multi-billion-dollar giants are put into place, there's a lot of tax added to them, often built based on plans for changes in growth or intensity of the area, but they don't take into account future changes or urban sprawl, policy changes. It takes probably about 3 to 5 years to get a plant in place. By that time, regulations could have changed or water conservation requirements changed. even chemistry conditions. And so that really goes against a centralized sewering scheme, whereas decentralized technologies are more adaptable to such changes. Also, this puts a value on the infrastructure, but not on the water itself. So the cost that we get in the monthly bills for each of the city dwellers, they end up just paying for the cost of infrastructure and repairs and piping and personnel, and the list goes on with all the fees that we're being charged and taxed just to keep these plants running. But instead of water bills for decentralized technologies, you can actually treat and manage your own water on site versus having to pay and throw away that water that's been used. So decentralized technologies take wastewater solids, just like the wastewater treatment plants. Takes the wastewater, separates it from organics and inorganics, also separates the material down to soluble, insoluble levels, and down to the degraded level to where it's treated water. So once you remove the waste, you're back to, again, the original component of water and have it available for water reuse. The driving force for water management systems, with these statistics, more than a quarter of the homes are currently on septic systems, whether it's advanced or just conventional. These systems are currently in operation and meet any number of regulatory requirements. The projection is that 37% of new home constructions will be on on-site systems, and that could include gray water treatment systems and recycling, or added other systems like irrigation or water reuse systems are considered with new home construction nowadays. 10 to 20% of the older systems will need to be maintained, or if it's needing to be upgraded, or that's something that is a yearly aspect of the type of systems that we're talking about. The environmental concerns with watersheds and aquifers, environmentally sensitive areas, those are have always been an issue with those local regulators, making sure that they don't put more biological nutrients in those environmentally sensitive areas. And so all of the systems are permitted with a high degree of nitrogen removal and phosphorus removal, just to make sure that you're not disrupting the ecosystem in those environmentally sensitive areas. Stormwater regulations are also coming up to date with prohibiting certain discharges if the runoff contains a high degree of, again, biological nutrients from agricultural runoff, or it contains common pollutants like trash, sediment, and hydrocarbons from urban activities that you won't be allowed to discharge them into the local waterways, that they have to have a treatment system that will identify those common pollutants and remove those from the stormwater flows. So again, Bio-Microbics, we are the manufacturer of these treatment systems. Why Bio-Microbics? We have 4 different wastewater treatment technologies, whether it's extended aeration, submerged fixed film, trickling filter, or even membrane bioreactors. 3 different gray water treatment technologies, 3 different stormwater technologies, all housed under one roof. So if it deals with water, we pretty much have a system that's designed to treat that. And other treatment and transfer systems that enhance a particular treatment system to meet the goals of the project. So we do all of that. So this is a nice graphic that shows the types of bacteria that we're talking about and that we attract. These are naturally occurring bacteria in the wastewater flows, so that our treatment systems are designed to propagate these strong aerobic bacteria that prey on the lesser pathogens and organic material. And I would not have been able to name them had they not had the title on these, but these are the good guys. So on on-site treatment systems, there's different levels of treatment, whether it's primary, which is just a screening device or something that removes the biological oxygen demand, or the BOD, and the total suspended solids to that level. We have a higher degree of treatment with advanced wastewater treatment systems. That's secondary, and that's what we call 30-30, BOD and TSS. And then the tertiary treatment level is even more of a treatment, higher water quality, and we call that 10-10 with BOD and TSS. Again, this is to separate out all the solids to organic, inorganic, and each of the different levels addresses those needs from the first screening from primary, and we do that with effluent screening devices, grease traps to trap most of the fats, oils, grease, and large inorganics, and be able to break down the larger organic solids. But it doesn't eliminate nutrients or oxygen depletion problems. This is more of your conventional septic system, only goes this far with its treatment level. For our treatment systems, we focus on secondary treatment. We introduce aeration treatment into the process. So again, those aerobic bacteria can prey upon the lesser bacteria of the anaerobic type of bacteria. And that the submerged fixed film activated sludge treatment is one type of technology. The smart trickling filters, the extended aeration is another type of technology, membrane bioreactors. All of these four are developed as secondary treatment options. You can add in clarifiers, but really the advanced treatment systems they do it all in one tank. That's not necessary unless if it's required under certain regulatory requirements, engineering requirements, or additional removal of biological nutrients. The tertiary treatment is, like with our membrane bioreactor, is a high nutrient removal, high effluent quality. And again, this removes 99.9% of the contaminants out of the wastewater. So where are the main uses for the reuse of water? And here it shows the percentage is really for agricultural usage. We do a fair amount of wineries and other type of farms to treat the water on site from all of their, whether it's harvest activities or just to recapture and reuse the water that they have through their irrigation processes or through the buildings that they use on site. Industrial usage, we really don't treat industrial wastewater. However, there's a high degree of water being used in their processes, and that they actually use a fair amount of water reuse for machine washdown and again back through their cooling tower media and other processes. And the rest of it's just again daily water usage. These were statistics that were shared on World Water Day and give people a snapshot of water's being used for a lot of different processes than just potable water usage, more than just what we drink. So water reuse is accomplished better with decentralized technologies. they create the permanent infrastructure that addresses many of the issues that centralized sewering cannot. So again, keeping the water on the property is the most effective and cost-effective way to manage your water, and provides long-term options. Maintenance is, with smaller systems, aren't as complicated as one giant centralized sewering treatment plant. The public health and environment are, again, of utmost concern when it comes to on-site treatment systems, and treating it to the secondary and tertiary levels that you're removing most of the contaminants and pollutants out of the wastewater. And again, it just makes sense for the decentralized technologies when it comes to goals for on-site water reuse. How well does it work? Well, in the case of our biobarrier system, that the MBR is submerged right into the tank. The wastewater then flows into the tank. It becomes what's called mixed liquor, and the MLS can be as high as 2,000 to 10,000 milligrams per liter, and the permeate that comes out of it is less than 4 milligrams to 2 milligrams on the BOD and the TSS. So it's doing a fair amount of that holding back of contaminants and pollutants from the wastewater flows. And you can see the before and after of the mixed liquor as it goes in, and the treated wastewater as it comes out. So third-party test does show that these treatment systems do in fact remove 97 to 99.9% of the contaminants. And again, that's what you want in a tertiary treatment system, especially for water reuse. If you need a direct discharge or direct use back into the house, you would want to see these types of numbers. Where they used? Anywhere that people live. So the single-family homes, subdivisions, commercial properties for restaurants or business parks, and even the renovation of upgrading old systems to advanced treatment systems. We focus on all of that. And the high-strength waste, when we talk about that, it's usually from restaurants that have a high amount of organics, which is food, that unused food portions going down the drain, fats, oils, and grease. All of that really makes the waste water what is considered high-strength waste. And recently, as we've put more of our gray water treatment systems on a property, it also reduces the water consumption, but not the waste. So that wastewater is also considered high-strength, which is a kind of a new concept as well for gray water treatment systems going into an on-site treatment system, that the on-site needs to take that into an account and have that considered. So small communities, that this shows the pathway of water, where water is stored on the property and then available for use, whether it's toilets, bathrooms, laundry, for the entire community. It gets used and then flows back out of the pipes into one treatment plant on the property, and then that provides the water back into the reservoir. So it's managing water to that community in particular. And the cost comparison from centralized sewering plant to provide the same the same treatment versus a smaller decentralized system, it's well within reach for these smaller communities that just don't have the income level that that other urban larger cities would have. So it does make economical sense for the small community. And a small community can be anywhere between large apartment complexes, business parks, and those are also considered communities. So it's not just individual homes bringing out, being able to treat on one wastewater treatment plant, but also high rises could be used and maintained with their own treatment system, whether it's in the basement of the high rise or on the roof. Both would be considered a small community. So as we look at this slide, we have the single family home scheme and going into larger types of applications and community systems. So each one has its own system designed fit for the purpose.
Well, I'm hoping everybody's not there today.
But as we move forward to be able to daisy chain homes onto one system, there's different schematics or versatility to be able to combine as many of the inhabitants' individual homes needed to provide the one treatment system. So they scale up easier than a centralized sewering system scaling down. And that's, again, the flexibility and versatility of decentralized technologies, that this blend of large and small scale concepts really align well with the regulations, and we can cherry pick some of the best practices from those regulations. So we don't have to choose that middle of the gap plumbing code or well regulations and then adopt some of the larger system policies and processes. At the very small end of the spectrum, the plumbing code can be somewhat upsized to handle those multiple sites. But again, trained operating authorities and oversight regulators and health departments can be able to weigh in and oversee these types of technologies going in and monitor the responsibility for the systems to match the large scale models. So when we talk about the large scale models, MyFast is a treatment system that goes from 10,000 gallons a day to more than 160,000 plus gallons a day, and we even have it up to 3,700 for million-gallon day flows. This is a submerged fixed film treatment process, and what we mean by submerged fixed film is that our media remains underwater, and then we have an airlift that provides aeration throughout, and it naturally sloughs off any of the old growth to be able to allow for new growth of the bacteria, and they adhere themselves onto the blue media. So again, scaling up is easier for these types of treatment systems, and you can go from one person to 5,000 for a community. How does it work? The system shows this is a concept that we have for a mall to treat all of the wastewater coming from the toilets. The wastewater enters into the system and gets screened in the primary treatment tank. These are MyTs that are self-cleaning. Once they're installed, they stay installed for effluent screening devices. The blower, above ground blower, is the only moving part to the system. It provides oxygen into the tank and again provides that action of splash over the media to keep it oxygenated, aerated, and the bacteria will then form and grow on the media itself, consuming all of the organic material, lesser bacteria and viruses. And those are the good guys right there. And then that does show the natural sloughing off of the growth so that new growth can then be able to happen. There's only one way out of the system, and that's through the outlet, and then that's 95% removed of all the contaminants and pollutants that you're able to do do more with that water for either direct discharge, water reuse, or any other type of water dispersal system. The MyFast has just like all of our FAST products, whether it's a retrofast to the MyFast, shows the consistent treatment performance. So when others go up and down from surges, that our FAST system is more of a consistent, stable treatment process, and you have less of the volatile up and down data that you would get with other treatment technologies. The Rolls Air is a extended aeration treatment system. Again, this has the same flow rates as our MyFast system, but it uses just air into the treatment process. And it's designed to be the simplest to install, operate, and maintain of its type. It uses our elixir systems in a daisy chain to show this type of technology. And again, scaling up is not a problem for the Rolls Air system as well. We use a primary screening tank with our MyT, self-cleaning. Once it's installed, stays installed in the tank, and screens the wastewater into the treatment zone, which it actually bypasses a zone here to go into the larger tanks where all the elixirs are installed and connected to the above ground blower, which is the only moving part to the system. This has a lot of versatility and configurations, so it's designed, again, fit for the purpose, and show all the elixirs working, and that's why it's the Rolls Air. The air rolls down the treatment tank. It does have two hopper clarifiers at the end, so as the bacteria consume all the organic material, then once they go through the second screening process, then it can be clarified, and any sludge buildup at the bottom will then go back into the treatment tank or into the sludge zone. So it has its own built-in biosolids management system that keeps the health of the bacteria in the treatment tank alive and going. There is the valve that switches it, so it can either go to the treatment tank or that it will have the, it jumped over here, but this is the biosolids management zone, so that you can store the biosludge here and pump this tank out periodically as it gets full. So that's really the concept of our Rolls Air extended aeration treatment plant. This shows the engineered drawing for the Rolls Air. So again, designed for the flow needed, and it can expand out as far as needed. Simple, low cost, robust. The BioBarrier MBR system is a technology that's getting a lot of notorieties. Last year in 2016, we were part of the WRF's Passport to Innovation program that they presented at WEFTEC. And this treatment process uses flat sheet membranes to physically separate the pollutants out of wastewater, and it has an aeration grid to, again, provide the aeration in the system, keep the membranes clean of clogs, and provide either one person to 2,500 people in a community tertiary treatment for their wastewater treatment needs. They're also used ideal for winery wastewater treatment that has a high chemical oxygen demand for the treatment of the sugars from winery waste activities. So a lot of wineries are looking to install biobarrier systems instead of just conventional methods or other treatment technologies. Again, it's installed inside the tank, has the primary zone for screening of the solids and the inorganics through the sanity system. Once it's installed, it stays installed. Have our clean and place swab, just like the MIT has. Above ground blower is the only moving part, providing oxygen into the tank. And that's directed toward the air grid that's underneath the membranes, keeping those clean, and then it produces a robust action of aerated wastewater, the mixed liquor, outside of the treatment module. And again, promoting the aerobic bacteria in wastewater. The flat sheet membrane goes down to the 0.03 micron, so that the only thing that exits the system is just water. You can add additional aeration treatment systems with the Elixir system. That's an option for any type of a project or requirement. Usually with the high strength waste, it would require that. And then again, more opportunity of what to do with that water after the treatment process. For the BioBarrier system, this is a commercial application table. So on the right side, this is showing conventional method soil-based treatment systems that only 1 gallon per square foot actually can be absorbed into the soil. With a BioBarrier system, this is again the same commercial flows, 35 gallons per square foot can be absorbed into the soil. So that shows how much cleaner the BioBarrier system is versus the soil-based conventional treatment methods. And it, again, for higher flow of perk rates, it still does a tremendous job at getting the wastewater as clean as down to water levels. And the soil permeability rate is more than 480 minutes per inch range, because again, the filtrate is just water, and it contains none of the organic compounds or pollutants that soil-based systems would still have present in it for that soil to having to treat. So BioBarrier, again, has a better opportunity of water reuse than soil-based systems. And the term is ultrafiltration because we're talking about wastewater. So these are various installations showing one module of the BioBarrier system inside the tank. One module is 500 gallons per day treatment and submerged in the wastewater. Once it's installed, it stays installed. And since the permeate out of the system has that high degree of permeability, the drain field doesn't have to be so large. So it's at a fraction of the size of a traditional drain field would be. And again, reducing cost all around because you don't have to have your land set aside for that large of a drain field, or if you have small lots or lakefront properties, this is the ideal treatment system for those small lots. And again, showing tables of influent parameters comparing, this is with the NSF 350 influent parameters and the type of required range that NSF 350 must meet, whether it's gray water or the wastewater concentration. So taking those influent parameters, this is the effluent requirements, and having NSF 350 on our BioBear system, it meets all of these requirements for the effluent criteria. This is showing a double stack, so when you stack two modules together, that becomes 1,000 gallons a day, and that's how we size exponentially. And then it gets into the high strength membrane bioreactors for sizing. So it's an easy way to size the system for the designed for the need for the flow. This shows a primary settling tank with two of our sanities. So they're, again, versatile. So if you need one effluent screening device or more, we have 4-inch, 8-inch, and 16-inch for primary screening at different slot levels, whether you have 8-inch or to 3/8-inch flows, whether for even stormwater flows for that matter. And that shows the effluent that comes out of a BioBear system. This is a net zero water project that we were involved with. It was sponsored by the National Science Foundation, that they had a project for a net zero water dorm at the University of Miami. The gentleman in the tie-dye shirt is our distributor in Florida, and he installed the BioBear system, and all the water being consumed in this dorm is then treated and then recycled back on its own closed loop system to show that these technologies are available and that they do meet the health and public health standards necessary for water reuse. And this is the testimonial that the chief investigator for this project had for his findings, and really was astounded at the quality level that this little blue box provided them for this to meet the goals of this project. So when we talk about soil-based systems and that they don't have any permeability, this shows that it's just a visual to show that soil only can take so much before it fills up. And so if you keep putting stuff out into your drain field, this is visually showing the clogging that's happening in your drain field because you're not removing any of those pollutants out of the wastewater. And that's what leads to the failure. With on-site soil-based systems, no matter how complex or well-managed, they are temporary. The loading rates for soil-based systems are sized to accommodate clogging by organics, but it's usually happens sooner rather than later, just because people don't know enough about their septic system and still puts fats, oils, and grease down the drain. Soluble organics and clogging happens with either not knowing what to do with their septic system, or not maintaining their septic system, or just sheer age alone. And that's what gives on-site systems a bad name, because it's not really treating anything in the tank. It's left up for the drain field to do that. Whereas advanced wastewater treatment systems puts all the treatment in the tank, so the drain field doesn't end up in this state. And again, doing away with the drain field with water reuse opportunity is what a lot of green building guidelines should promote, besides water conservation devices. So again, showing failed systems, and then an advanced wastewater treatment system, you wouldn't have that clogging type of situation. This is the entire system for this commercial property. That it includes the drain field and the treatment tanks. So moving on with gray water opportunities that we do that too with the 3 different technologies we have available. We have our recover system, and that shows a water conservation of about 30% reduction when you can combine your shower water and your toilets to save that water usage inside the home. The system also auto-detects toilet leakage, which is another problem with larger systems, that the only way to currently detect a toilet leaking is when you get your water bill. So it's nice to know on the front end if on this panel it shows that there's a constant water feed happening in your toilet, then you can be able to address it before it becomes a financial surprise later. So this is the recover system installed. These are our distributors in Colorado, and this is a whole home shower to toilet gray water recovery system. How it works: takes the shower water as it's being used, fills up the tank, and it gets screened by the 100 micron screen that's in there. It gets chlorinated with a chlorine tablet, and every time that you flush the toilet, it has the treated gray water available for the next flush. So every time you shower, it will fill up. And a 10-minute shower actually can flush your toilet 20 times. And people aren't aware that they use that much water a day just with cleaning process and toilet flushing. And again, this is 30% of your water consumption happening right in front of your screen right now. Again, the leak detection, there's calculations that you can be able to detect how much that your toilets do leak, but on the screen of a recover system, it will let you know how much of the water is being used, and if it does detect the toilet leakage, it alerts you right away, so you don't end up having to calculate out the numbers yourself. Stormwater treatment is becoming a hot button topic. Currently, the regulations, there's so few when it comes to the best management practices for stormwater treatment that what we've introduced is the BioStorm system, where it has the same concept idea of the wastewater treatment for primary screening, and then having a treatment module to do more of the finer treatment afterwards. This is a great way to remove the 3 common pollutants out of wastewater runoff flows in the urban core by capturing trash debris into the primary screening zone, and then removing sediment and hydrocarbons with the treatment module. So a 2-stage treatment system allows both treatment components you can use them separately in different applications or together. So if you have 5 satellite locations where the water flows off from the street, then captures all of the trash into the first zone into 5 individual litter control primary screenings, and then those 5 can then be hooked up to 1 treatment zone. So again, versatility of the setup and concept for the stormwater treatment. And this treatment zone, that it's a labyrinth using the media inside there, that the sediment settles to the bottom, hydrocarbons coalesce to the top, and there's only one way out of the system, going through this labyrinth of plastic media and out to the outlet T, and go either direct discharge or a local reservoir if you're wanting to provide the water for a retention pond. And because you've removed sediment and hydrocarbons, then you can be able to discharge that that runoff water because you've treated it prior to that, and it doesn't promote the retention pond aging that non-treatment of stormwater tends to do. Easy maintenance, so have all areas open to observation ports, and you can be able to remove any of the accumulated litter, remove any of the accumulated sediment, and remove any of the accumulated hydrocarbons on a periodic basis, whether it's annually or every 5 years. Other aspect of biomicrobics that people aren't aware of is that we do have water treatment systems through our Cyanco brand. This is in our St. Louis location, and they manufacture on-site sodium hypochlorite generators and on-site brine makers that with the sodium hypochlorite, it takes brine water, and with salt water and electricity, it makes as much chlorine needed for water treatment processes, or as the video with the dairy cows prior to this, that can be used on animal husbandry farms to keep the animals disinfected and disease-free, with providing large amounts of chlorine or sodium hypochlorite for the health of dairy cows. Everything that touches a dairy cow has to be disinfected. So a dairy farm goes through an enormous amount of disinfectant solution, and it makes sense for them to have their own sodium hypochlorite generator rather than storing copious amounts of liquid chlorine, or worse, storing gas chlorine, which is highly explosive. So this is a great alternative for them to provide that for their property. Cybrine has a lot of interesting applications to provide bulk salt dissolving solution for ion exchange, textiles, industrial applications, anything needing large amount of brine. They'll need to store tons of salt, and might as well store the salt in a brine maker and produce the brine on site. And these are in several different sizes available, as well as several different sizes of the cyclor unit. So biomicrobics, we focus on water for on-site applications, whether it's a single-family home, clustered subdivision, community, commercial property, or small municipality. Our flows range from 1 person to more than 5,000 people. And it's a simplified infrastructure for the community, village, or small municipality with easier maintenance, operation, and at a lower cost for wastewater management. The water treatment plant can then be maintained easier because of the wastewater issue has been resolved. And having on-site treatment systems, you can potentially recharge your local aquifer rather than throwing the water away through the next waterway to become somebody else's source. So it still maintains that source water for that community. So to continue with sustainable development goals, the issue is to provide adequate water and sanitation for these small municipalities, and maintenance is a huge issue when it comes to maintaining smaller treatment systems, but because no operator is needed for decentralized technologies, it makes that far easier for a small municipality to have. And pre-treatment program, corrosion control, fats, oils, and grease program, and stormwater management, those should all be considered when a small municipality is designing their treatment system, to make sure that they're identifying all of the streams of wastewater that could potentially enter into the system and be able to treat that water to the standards for the goals of the community. And that's it. That's small community. You have many options. And there is a just a shout out for our social media for Bio-Microbics. You can see the icons we have at the bottom, so do search Bio-Microbics on each one of those. Fan, follow, and like our social media network so you can stay in the water conversation. We post a lot of not only product information, but just topic related that is more of industry educational material. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jennifer. A question that did come in via text. There was an interest in the HSMBR units. They wanted to know how many of those can actually be stacked together. The little blue boxes.
The largest treatment HSMBR that I know off the top of my head, it exceeds 27,000 gallons per day. And so the treatment module, and they're installed in treatment trains. So again, very versatile, but it can go to those larger flows that are typically awkward in other treatment technologies, but not for our systems.
Okay, we're going to switch to the resources screen. If I lose your video, do start your webcam up again. Yep, I think I did. Let me start the video again here. Pull that over here. Okay, I'm going to start mine as well here. Okay, so if there are any other questions, do put them into the chat window. While you're thinking about that, a couple of pieces of information about what you see here. There is a polling question to find out if this is the first time you've heard about the built first suitability fit for purpose designed for needs systems. Do go ahead and do that if you would, please. There's a whole bunch of resource files there, which you can either select the whole thing and download it, or you can kind of scroll around and see which ones you would like, and just highlight them and the download files button will appear. Also, if you're looking at this on the recording later, the same functionality will be available for you. And just to scroll down here, there are numerous organizations now that are in the same field of advocacy for the fit-for-purpose, sustainable on-site. And it's really tough about what we call these things, because whenever we start talking about on-site, people really think we're just talking about the common or garden backyard septic system. And I think you've appreciated now from all of the things that we've looked at today is that is simply not the case. What we're looking at here are resilient, adaptable, built to scale, perfectly acceptable, and in some cases exceptionally exceptional. Well, treatment, and in some cases sometimes in excess of the normal collection, clarifying, and discharge from central municipal plants. So in the file sharing there, WERF, the Water Environment Research Foundation, which we've talked about a little in this, did a whole collection of tools for small communities, looking at the technologies, looking at how to do financing, how to do community planning. There are some case studies in there from NAWRA, the National On-Site Wastewater Recyclers Association. There's NESI, the National Environment Science Center, West Virginia University. It's not as if the resources aren't available. What isn't really available is the advocacy and the outreach, and that really is the purpose of our organization. It's if you can just get the information out in front of the people who really need to see this. This is a godsend for any small community out there. And even small urbanized communities, because the one thing that we've really been emphasizing in this session today is about adaptability. The what ifs, that you can design a system on really optimistic projections of growth and population. And then, you know, look at what's happened to the demographic trends in the United States in the last few years, where a majority of people are now living in heavily urbanized areas. And nobody's suggesting that you tear up the entire sewer system for the city of Chicago. I mean, that's just not going to happen. But the suburbs around big metropolitan areas, if one big system goes down, everybody's goes down. Mm-hmm. And it is much more financially acceptable and responsible to decompartmentalize some of the bigger systems. Because the other thing that can happen, as we said, your population can change, your biggest employer could move. And we've seen a couple of systems where their entire biology has been thrown off because the biggest contributor isn't there anymore. I'm thinking of one particular community where it was a brewery. Where a bunch of high-strength waste suddenly wasn't there, and so the mechanics of having to retool your treatment train can get pretty expensive. And then once the flow isn't there, then you start getting septicity in the lines themselves, where there isn't enough volume going through to keep things moving, and it lays there and causes all kinds of stinky problems. So. And then one of the sessions that we talked about last time was the situation in the western states, where we've had, until recently, incredible droughts and forest fires, and now we're seeing massive flooding. And central systems don't do well when you throw a spanner at them like that. Smaller systems are much more adaptable and easy to repair and replace and get them up and running again. So there are pros and cons on both sides. I wouldn't want people to think that we were completely anti-centralized sewer, because we're not. We're saying that there are situations where it's appropriate and fiscally responsible to take a cautious approach and build for the situation that you're currently living in, but with one eye on the future, so that when you put these wastewater treatment systems, integrated water systems in place, they can be scaled upwards if you need to, or scaled back if the same situation happens as some rural communities where, you know, in the last 20, 30 years, they've lost 20% of their population. So one simple solution for all of this, while you're obviously still downloading all of your information here, is to arrive at a community consensus. And we've talked about this extensively, about what is it you want and why do you want it, and who wants it, and is this what everybody wants, because that may not be the case. I always said that the fastest way to be recalled as a local elected official was to be the one proposing the 40-year bond issue, because people don't want to be stuck with a debt for 40 years for something that they may not be alive to see it paid off in the future. You're passing that debt on to your kids or your grandkids. And the simplest way to arrive at what are my options is very simple. It's to put out a request for proposals. There are many places where you can post this. There are many places, for example, you could post it, I'm sure, through NAURA or NESI or any of the other entities. You can post this is who we are. This is what we think our problems are. We'd like to get a better handle on what we need. what do you have that might work for us? And if you're an elected official, that really is your responsibility, I think, is to look at all the options and how each one will impact the people who live in your community. And the analogy we like to use is that, oh my goodness, wouldn't we all like a BMW convertible? Absolutely wonderful. But then you look at how much it's going to cost to insure it. You can't buy just any off-the-pump gas to put in it. Where are you going to park it? How long will it run? How much is it going to cost to have your dream car? And most of us may sit in one for a little while and dream, but the rest of us will probably then walk over to the used car lot side of the establishment and probably end up going home with our Ford pickup truck, because that's what we need and that's what will serve us the best. So what we'd like to do here, if you're still downloading, don't worry, you can come back and do this. We've talked here that these are not new technologies, and there's a video that was put together back in 2002, and when myself and Jennifer were talking about the content for this class, this presentation today, it boggles our minds how long we've been talking about this and trying to convince people that this is a perfectly acceptable, good way to approach management and service for small communities. Because, you know, let's not kid ourselves. Just because you live in a small rural community doesn't mean you have to put up with second-class service or slightly substandard wastewater treatment. It wasn't true 15 years ago, sorry, and it certainly isn't true today. The video we're going to close with runs about 15 minutes, so if you do have to leave, we understand that, but do come back later and watch that. But before we close out today, I just want to make sure that there are any other questions that anyone has, or any final comments from you, Jennifer?
No, looking forward to the video, and again, check out our social media network sites.
Okay, we're going to play the video and then we will end the recording for the day, but I think you'll find this very, very interesting, and thank you again for attending. I'm going to just close down my video feed, and let's switch.
Small towns, urban fringe and suburban developments, rural communities across the country, a small mining village in the Northwest, coastal residential areas. Across America, communities have learned that sewers and central wastewater treatment plants are not the only way to have a comfortable standard of living. A well-organized community on-site wastewater management system, or OMS, can ensure public health, enhance water quality, protect property values, sustain the environment, and accommodate growth for the long term. Examples abound nationwide. Some communities have implemented an on-site wastewater management system from the beginning. Others have developed an OMS to address specific concerns or to correct failing conditions. All are successfully using wastewater treatment systems located in or near their own yards. But are on-site systems a modern way to treat wastewater? Are they really that dependable? Historically, seepage pits and septic systems were constructed without much siting or design guidance and received little maintenance. Failures were common. During the post-war housing boom in the late 1940s and early 1950s, millions of septic systems were installed. Despite improved septic tank designs, there were still widespread failures.
Of course, the reasons that they failed early on was that we never recognized differences in soil and soil acceptance rates. Well, as a result of these continuing failures, it was reasoned that these systems are unreliable.
Treatment begins in the septic tank. Solids and floating matter separate from the wastewater. The wastewater is then dispersed to the soil where most treatment occurs. New knowledge about soil has led to success with septic systems.
The idea is that the soil contains numerous bacteria, and that the bacteria then aid in purifying the liquid as it passes by.
With the air found in loose soil to breathe, and with the food and the wastewater to eat, the organisms multiply and go to work. The water clears in as little as 2 feet of good soil. But good soil is not found everywhere. Only about 1/3 of the United States has soil suitable for conventional systems. However, there are methods that make up for site limitations. An artificial drain field or mound can be built, augmenting thin soils. Or the biological action of soil can be put in a box of sand or other media. These media filters are then used to pre-treat the wastewater before it is dispersed to the drain field. Another method of pre-treatment is to blow air directly into a wastewater container where suspended organisms are present. The organisms breathe, eat, and multiply. When no more food is available, they die and settle, leaving clarified wastewater. These aerobic treatment units, or ATUs, pre-treat the wastewater before it is dispersed. There are many variations in on-site system design, but all utilize the same natural biological processes. David Van Huysen, Texas designer and consultant, has been working with innovative on-site systems for many years.
The whole community doesn't have to be at one point or the other. The whole community doesn't have to be all centralized or all on-site. It doesn't have to all be this level of cluster or this level of cluster. You can have different areas of the community that could be managed in different ways. The idea is that the whole thing is one management system.
If a good drain field cannot be found on everyone's lot, a cluster system may be a practical solution. Each house may have its own septic tank, but they are all connected to a single drain field. Cluster systems can be included with a variety of other on-site treatment methods within one effective community management system. The California oceanfront settlement of Stinson Beach has operated a successful on-site management system for over 25 years. The 700 residences and businesses occupy very small lots served by on-site systems. In the 1970s, many septic systems were failing. To avoid the high cost and the population increase that sewers and a central plant might bring, committed residents developed an on-site wastewater plan using innovative alternative systems managed by the Stinson Beach County Water District.
The engineering firm that I worked for before dealt with centralized systems. I thought that at one time that was the only way to go, and I thought that septic systems were basically an old method until I came here at Stinson Beach. Looking at the way these systems operate and the monitoring system that we have here, I feel that the cost effectiveness of these systems more than outweighs the cost of a centralized system.
The conventional and advanced on-site systems here are continually monitored and maintained to assure protection of the sensitive environment.
I think the management program here will work in just about every location. If it's done properly and it's managed properly, you should not have a problem. These systems could probably last 40 to 50 years without a problem.
Near the American River, in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains, the planned community of Auburn Lake Trails has been successfully using conventional on-site systems, mounds, and sand filters for 20 years, monitored and managed by the Public Utility District.
The reason our zone works so well is because we've done such extensive work in defining the problems in the soil. And once those limitations have been identified, then we can engineer something that can address the limitations in the soil. But it does require some advanced technology.
We test the effluent straight out of the sand filters themselves, and our district engineer has been very impressed how clean the water is inside these sand filters before they get dosed to the leach lines. It's important that these sand filters do their job. Otherwise, it could send the effluent right down to our creeks and contaminate our creeks and streams. And we've never had a positive sample in our streams.
When you have a problem with a septic tank, you have maybe a 250-gallon-a-day problem. When you have a problem with the sewer system, you've got 1 million gallons a day. And for rural America, dealing with a 250-gallon-a-day problem makes a lot more sense than trying to deal with a million. I'm very glad I don't have to deal with 1 million gallons of untreated sewage when there's a problem.
In Edison, Washington, shellfish beds were being polluted by the local tidal slough, which contained effluent from failing septic systems and directly discharged waste. Doris Robbins and her neighbors were determined to find a solution that would not be too economically disruptive.
We had to keep the expense down because this is a fairly low-income community with 4 generations of people living here. We wanted to keep them here.
To serve the 75 homes and businesses, community volunteers helped build a gravel filter. The local school district, also a major stakeholder, provided the high ground for the drain field and shares in the management of the system.
We were able to cut the cost per site from $20,000 to $7,000. And then for a certain income level, their costs were cut even further to $3,000. The first summer, people commented on how the slough didn't stink anymore.
In the Midwestern farm village of Klossner, Minnesota, old septic systems were failing. Soil limitations were overcome by installing new mounds and clusters. The nearby hamlet of St. George had similar problems.
The community was in a violation threat from the county and from the MPCA, and they realized that they had to do something. And at that point in time, they came to the township to try and get some help with the county and try to find answers.
The township planned and enabled a community on-site management system, installing a cluster to serve the 23 homes in the management entity.
As to management, people realize when they invest that kind of money nowadays into a septic system, just like you do a car, just like you do a house, you need to protect it, you need to take care of it. They may not know how to take care of it, and that's why we implement management tools that either help them understand so they can do it themselves, or if they don't choose to, someone will do it for them, and therefore they are protected.
In the late 1970s, people in Otter Tail County, Minnesota, noticed a decline in the water quality in their lakes. They decided to replace failing septic systems and start an on-site management system. Roland Mann administers the OMS that ensures the proper functioning of over 1,500 on-site systems in the district.
Your sludge accumulates, your scum accumulates in your tanks, and they definitely need to be checked. And everybody's system is different. One house can have to be pumped every 2 years, another one might not have to be pumped for every 6 or 7 years. That's what we're finding. And it just all goes back to usage, and the only way to find out is to monitor it, check the tank, see what's in there, see what's coming out of the tank. If you don't, obviously the longevity of the system is going to be curtailed immensely. Water clarity in the lakes had definitely improved. You could go out and you could see the bottom a lot better than you ever could.
In North Carolina, the area around Elizabeth City has extremely high water tables. Residents there use septic systems managed by the Albemarle Regional Health Services on-site management entity. The OMS has been so successful that several adjacent counties have joined it.
Years ago, before we started the ME program, we had like a 30% failure rate. Since we started the ME program, we had a 1% failure rate. That to me says a whole lot for the management entity program.
Many who work in Washington, D.C. live in nearby Fairfax County. The county health department's on-site management system, perhaps the first in the country, has overseen septic systems for more than half a century. Among the various management procedures, periodic pump-outs by licensed contractors are required. Management reviews ensure that the OMS can adapt to meet changing needs. Today it serves about 25,000 on-site systems.
Based on the Clean Water Act of 1972, everyone thought that we were going to have sewers. And so a mindset developed that septic tanks are only temporary. We're going to have sewers. Well, now, today, we recognize clearly that we're not going to have sewers. But that mindset hasn't changed. We've been doing work here at UC Davis on intermittent sand fillers, textile filters, and the quality that you get is superior to what you produce at a wastewater treatment plant. And so, from a treatment standpoint, on-site systems don't have to take a back seat to more conventional facilities.
And because we can focus all of our attention on the treatment process, and we don't have to worry about the collection part of the process, it's really a much more cost-effective option than when you look at a central system, especially for suburban or rural areas.
Communities of people in rural areas really choose to live there, are proud of their community, and justifiably so, and want to take care of problems themselves. And this is a very, very appropriate way for a community to have a high standard of living with protecting the environment, protect the public health, but still maintain that rural character.
Most of our staff has realized that you can't economically sewer all rural areas. In the areas that we have left that need additional, either for public health reasons or water quality reasons, wastewater treatment, this could be a viable option with the management component so that you achieve the desired treatment results and ensure the long-term viability of the systems.
In our office, the on-site and decentralized program is one of our key initiatives. That's what we're promoting, is to look at the options, consider decentralized systems where you can get the community involved very early in the process, give them the information that they need to demonstrate that these are viable options.
Located in Morgantown, West Virginia, on the campus of West Virginia University, the National Environmental Services Center specializes in providing information and professional expertise in water quality and wastewater issues to interested communities throughout the country.
One of our primary areas of focus at the center is to actually move out and to visit with and to assist communities at the local level. Community leaders, local decision makers, and residents of communities across America have a good, clear understanding much of the time about many of the issues that concern them. But they don't necessarily know where to draw on the resources, the expertise, or to receive the technical assistance. And so we here at our center send out into the field experts, draw on that resource, provide products and services and other related and ancillary support to enable communities to define and design their own destinies.
A community really only has two choices. If change is inevitable and progress is optional, you can choose to do nothing. If you choose to do nothing, then the destiny of the community is not really in the community's hands. It's in the hands of those people who are creating the change. We have numerous communities around the United States that have been successfully using management entities of some form or another, in some cases for decades. And they have been able to do it successfully. So our job really here is to say, look at what others have done. We'll help you with understanding how others have accomplished this. It's not decision making at levels where you have to be fearful about what the outcome is. It's sorting through the options to design something that's good for your community.
Thank you all for attending today. I hope you found this educational and interesting and replicable. As we said, all those was produced in 2002, and there are numerous entities now who are there to help you do community planning, and we are certainly one of them. And NARA, the National On-Site Wastewater Recycling Association, you will find all of those materials in the file download screen, so do rewind this recording and go back and grab those. Thank you and good afternoon.